I'm Alexander Morris.
Hi, my name is Selena.
Hi, I'm Linda Hun, and today we will be covering an American example of transmitting the Dharma. Zen Buddhism is a primary form of Buddhism practice in the West. Zen Buddhism has been practiced for 2,500 years and it utilizes full-bodied spiritual traditions where devotion plays a central role. This practice consists of bowing hands together upon entering and leaving the Zendo. This is where Zen Buddhism is practiced, doing prostrations before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and making offerings to them, and lastly, partaking in confessions and repentance ceremonies. By doing all of this, you are said to hasten awakening, and sincere devotional practices will help liberate inherent compassions so that they may work freely in everyday life. Zen ceremonies have been practiced in traditional Buddhist countries for centuries. However, they are now practiced in Zen centers in Western culture through a process of natural evolution. These ceremonies are typically practiced at funerals, weddings, ordination, the Buddha's birthday, death day, and Day of Enlightenment, Founders' Day, New Year's Day, confession repentance ceremonies, and ceremony dedicated to the aid of starving people, which typically happens once a month, and lastly, Thanksgiving. Ceremonies are typically a way to express gratitude, reverence, and genuine spiritual feelings that can be deepened and made more significant when expressed through a formal pattern. Chanting plays a central role in Zen Buddhism. Men and women in Zen temples or centers assemble in the main hall at least once a day and chant sutras and the word of the masters who have realized the highest truth.
And I'm going to continue with essentially the significance of chanting. So within Zen ceremonies, there is no other element that basically has more of a central role than chanting does. And the reason being is because chanting creates this focal point and ground for every ritual, ceremony, and rite of passage that is going to be performed. Chanting kind of allows for women and men to have this heightened sense and awareness and receptiveness during every ceremony that they're going to perform. Now, as a result, you're going to hardly see any Zen temple or center where men and women don't assemble in the main hall at least once a day and chant their sutras and the words of the masters who have realized the highest truth. Now, with the chants, there are two types of chants, the sutras and dharani. The sutras are the alleged words of the Buddha in one's own language, and the reason why is to instill this kind of greater understanding and create a mindset that connects to self-transcendence. Now, Dharani is more of an extended mantra that is produced through a series of rhythmic sounds. This is used to evoke unseen forces when the chanter has the right mind state and is chanting wholeheartedly. The Dharani is more potent than the sutra when one is pure in faith, concentrated in the mind, and responsive in the heart. Now, I want to continue and talk about the use of drums and the significance within the chants. So every day at dawn, drummers will beat a large standing drum to signal sitters to file into the room to begin chanting. The drummer will then run his stick along the brass beads on the side of the drum and follow that with sharp strikes to the wooden rim of the drum, leading into the final rhythm the drums have to offer to the ceremony. After the drums, there's a bowl-shaped gong called the kesu, which is ultimately struck. So the kesu players will play this in conjunction with the different introductions of the chants. So with this, the kesu will kind of drop the heavy striker onto the rim and the gong. And the reason why I say drop is because they play in a way where it's not necessarily striking the instrument, but letting it be struck instead. And the reason being is because if the tone and the strike is too hard or too soft, or it's hit at an incorrect angle, the kesu will ultimately fail to release the full, rich body of the tones within the instrument. So after the introduction of each chant, they then begin to bring in a wooden fish drum. So while both drums are being played with the notion of guidance, this essentially means that the player kind of guides the structure and guides the striker to play itself. This way, it's kind of like I said before, don't strike the instrument, but let it be struck. So this is used in order to contrast and harmonize with the chanting voices. Within chanting, there's between 50 and 300 chanters. So the significance of the drums is to kind of add to the chanting without overpowering the chanting. They use it in a way to kind of counterpoint all of the voices, contrast and harmonize with all of them. So the energy of the chant kind of comes from the lower belly and the lower abdomen of this, and they do it in a way where it's kind of your lowest natural pitch and your lowest note, where you can easily maintain that without any strain. When one is chanting, your whole body is going to be relaxed, not swaying or rocking, but rather erect and stable with a good posture and hands in your lap. So the reason why each chanter will kind of use their lowest natural pitch is so that there isn't any too high or too low kind of voices in this sing-songy way, and more a harmonious kind of dominant pitch coming all together with the drums and kind of circumventing to awaken understanding and express feeling without emotionality.
I will be explaining a specific instance of Zen Buddhism being practiced in America. The Rochester Zen Center, or RZC, in New York State is an example of Zen practices being expanded into the West. Philip Kapleau founded the center to transmit his vision of the Dharma in a form that preserves its religious integrity, yet remains both palatable and accountable in the American cultural setting. Most of the chants of the RZC are in English, which is an example of Buddhism adapting to local culture to accommodate local adherents. The most recognizable chants of the RZC are the Four Bodhisattvic Vows, the Heart of Perfect Wisdom, and Master Hakuin's chant in praise of Zazen. At the RZC, the Bodhisattvic vows have been adapted to Western audiences. The translation they use includes the term liberate rather than save in the first stanza to avoid the moralistic and un-Buddhistic implication of redemption from sin and to differentiate Zen Buddhism from Christianity. This is in an effort to make Buddhist thought more approachable for Westerners that are unsatisfied with Christianity. This is an interesting contrast with Buddhist modernists who try to reconcile Buddhism with Abrahamic beliefs in order to be palatable to a Christian majority. Another example of cultural transmission at the RZC is the Heart of Perfect Wisdom, also known as the Heart Sutra. It is one of the only dharani that has been translated to English. Meant to be understood through one's personal intuition and experience, the Heart of Perfect Wisdom explains the concept of the 5 aggregates, or skandhas, of human personalities. Composed by 18th century Japanese Zen master Hakuin, the chant in praise of Zazen displays a distinctive Zen heritage of the RZC. The chant is an explanation of the Zazen, the name of Zen meditative practices.
The connection that we made between lecture and the presentation was covered under the topic of Zen Buddhism during the lecture regarding the spread of Buddhism in Japan. In class, we learned that meditative practice was used to attain direct realization of the truth in Zen Buddhist practice. Eisai founded the Rinzai Zen school in the early 1100s. This school used koans, which are paradoxal utterance for breaking down conceptual thoughts. Hakuin later revives the Rinzai tradition in 1685, and Dojin found the Soto Zen school in 1200, which used sitting as a form of meditation to express Buddha nature. This is now the most popular form of Zen outside of Japan. Now we will insert a short clip of how Zen Buddhism is practiced at the Zen schools.
Zen, or meditation Buddhism, was introduced to Japan from China in the 1100s. It emphasizes seeking one's own Buddha nature through meditation. These monks live at Tofukuji in Kyoto, one of Japan's oldest Zen temples. Every chore, no matter how routine, is undertaken with mindfulness. staying in the present rather than letting the mind wander to past or future. The monks line up to meet with the abbot. They will discuss koans, paradoxical problems that cannot be solved through rational thought. The process of working on the koan, for months, even years, will open the disciple's mind to new levels of awareness. Monks spend much of their day in meditation and rarely sleep more than 4 hours a night. The head monk's strike is not a punishment, but an aid to meditation. It revives the monk and may even shock him into greater awareness. Meals are taken with complete mindfulness on the food and the ritual use of the bowls and utensils. Not a drop is wasted. After cleaning the temple, the monks venture out to beg for alms. In the old days, people gave rice or other offerings of food. These days it's more common to give cash. Some monks train as calligraphers, painters, or gardeners. Paintings depict famous Zen sayings in calligraphy, or Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism. Rock gardens symbolize mountainous landscapes, the ideal retreat for monastic life. From the origins of Buddhism in India to the development of schools in China, Korea, and Japan, meditation Buddhism has transcended language and culture. Over the past 50 years, Zen has gained many new followers outside of Asia. The pursuit of mental focus and the benefits of meditation appeal to people in search of meaning in a rapidly changing world.
And then this last slide shows the sources that we used. And that's it for our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. Thank you.